We've been telling you all morning long what a treat we had in store. The time has come. There's a movie coming out called 12 Monkeys. I don't think that is as important as the fact that there is a Terry Gilliam film coming out. Welcome back, my friend.
Certainly important to me and my wife, my kids. And
I asked Nick DiGilio to stick around this morning because we both sat at the same screening of 12 Monkeys. We both admire your work. Well, you were here for, I think, what, Fisher King?
I think so. I mean, I keep popping in. It all becomes very much like the film. I don't know what the present is, what the past is. We've been here. Maybe we never left here. Maybe we're still talking about this thing. It's strange. And you go around doing these tours, and you keep popping in. You see faces, and you have these terrible deja vu experiences every time you turn up in another city.
For those of you who don't remember, this is the man who brought us Time Bandits in Brazil and Fisher King. And I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise that a movie that deals with time travel, which is part of 12 Monkeys, would be almost a natural for Terry Gilliam. You agree, don't you, Nick?
Oh, sure, yeah. Any vision of the dark future has a lot to do with that.
What about the dark past?
The dark past also, yeah.
That's what makes 12 Monkeys so intriguing. Is it the past? Is it the future? When the movie's over, you have experienced something that you will think and talk about for days.
But that's what was important. I mean, there's so few films like that, and I think so many people just go now, they check their brain in as they go in, and they sit and watch films that, they start, and you kind of know where you're going to go all the time. This part of the world's going to blow up, this guy's going to die. And, you play with that formula, and some are more interesting than others. But this script, when it turned up, I read it, and I hadn't read anything like this. This actually has come from Universal Pictures, it's come through the studio system. And my attitude was, well, let's continue running the gauntlet with this thing and see if we can get it through, because it was written by David and Jan Peoples, and David wrote, well, most recently, Unforgiven.
Oh,
and before that, Blade Runner, and he's just one of the great writers, and he's dangerous.
And he got away with writing a script through a studio like that.
Yeah,
you're not exactly fond of working with
no,
studios
not at all,
anymore,
because you usually have to, tailor your things for the neuroses of the executives, because they're very fearful people. And but this one was interesting because the script came to me. I didn't go approaching it, and the fact that it was from Universal was even more ironic and interesting, because that was the studio that I had a huge public battle with over Brazil. So when I suggested this, I said, "Oh, this is intriguing." And It's actually been a really strange experience, because I thought I'd have fights, and I haven't had a single fight. Wow. They've let me get away with murder.
All right, now, the problem, that's literal, friends. The problem you have with talking about a film that you haven't seen yet is to intrigue you, to find out from the director some of his thoughts, but not to give away everything. Let's try. The movie opens, it's the year 2000 and something.
Oh, something.
Okay, so we are in the future. I guess the Earth has been pretty well decimated, because the first glimpse that we have of human beings, they're all underground, or they're somewhere.
I mean, the premise of this is that somewhere towards the end of 1996 and the beginning of 1997, a virus was released, which wipes out 5 billion people, leaving only a few friends together, who then manage to scramble underground with as much technology as they can bring with them, and they manage to survive and build a society underground. Now, somewhere 30 years in the future, they've developed time travel. They haven't developed the McDonald's hamburger again, but they've developed time travel, and they start trying to send people back to try to find this virus that wiped out humanity, which is now mutated, so that they can develop a cure for it, an antidote, and then hopefully reclaim the planet. This may be true, or it may not. It may be the construct of a totally delusional schizophrenic played by Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in a casting coup, and you must tell us how this all came about, Bruce Willis just gets a chance to show what a fine actor he is.
I mean, I really want him to be nominated for an Academy Award, because I think he deserves it. It's incredible. It was really, ultimately, it came down to Bruce to finally get us the green light on the film, because even though the studio had spent an awful lot of money on this script and had dragged me in, they were still dragging their feet. And I in fact, didn't want to work with superstars. I have no great desire to do that. I wanted to make the film with just actors, and probably make it for less money, and have, therefore, more control and a lot less neurotic and worried executives around me. But they they began to get nervous and they wanted to star, and they started throwing a lot of silly names at me, whoever was popular that week.
Why don't you tell us some of those? No, I know you won't.
I wouldn't want to. Some fine actors out there. But anyway, so I said no to all of it. So I actually walked away from the project. And then a few weeks later, they said, Bruce Willis is interested. And this is interesting, because I'd met him when we were casting Fisher King, and I really liked him. I didn't expect it, but I really liked him. It was one of those meetings that was supposed to be 45 minutes, really rushed. We spent the whole afternoon together, and there were, I don't know if you remember in Die Hard 1, there's the scene where he's picking glass out of his feet. He's in the toilet. He's on the phone to his wife. And he's crying. And I thought, that just was such a surprising thing to see in a macho action film. And I asked him about it, and he said that was his idea, the crying. It wasn't in the script. And I thought, well, here's a far more interesting character than he's normally presented. And he was desperate to try, he's, as a lot of the big stars are, desperate to try to show they're not just this packageable commodity that pays them lots of money. And Bruce has been doing this for the last several years. Anyway, we met, and we talked about it, and I said, this is so far different from anything you've done before, because you've got to internalize for once. You can't externalize. You can't do all the smart, blowing up the world. You can't have your smart-ass comments. You can't have your smirk. You can't do any of those things. You've got to find something deep inside. You've got to be alone, lost, vulnerable, innocent. And he was determined to do it, and
he did it.
It's also the most unglamorous of any of his roles. I mean, he's required at one point to drool for a good 5 minutes and just and look dirty and beat up throughout the entire movie. And it's unusual to find a movie star that would take a role that would require that kind of work.
He doesn't have that kind of vanity that most of them do. I mean, he will just throw himself into it. I mean, I think there are more bodily fluids in this film than any film out there this year or next.
Which we will tell you more about when we come back. Terry Gilliam, Roy Leonard, and Nick DiGilio. We're talking about Terry's new film, 12 Monkeys. We'll be right back. Terry Gilliam is here to talk about 12 Monkeys. Now, for those of you who have been listening for the past 10 minutes, you know that Bruce Willis has been sent back from somewhere in the year 2000, back to 1996. He's got to try and find how this virus was released that decimated the earth, killed 5 billion people. And he winds up incarcerated in an insane asylum where he meets, and this is going to knock your socks off, an actor who has got to be one of the hottest guys around, who also took a chance, I think, with this role, as Bruce Willis did. And I'm talking about Brad Pitt.
Yep.
What an amazing performance. And Nick DiGilio, who still complains about Brad Pitt's hair, was even amazed.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with this performance. Actually, I liked him in both films that he did this year. I thought he was really quite different than he'd ever been, but especially in this one. It reminded me a little bit of the Fisher King, the relationship that the two have.
Well spotted. I mean, no, because it's very much, Bruce is playing a character not unlike Jeff Bridges' character, and Brad is playing the Robin Williams part, the fireworks, boom, he's exploding everywhere. It's very interesting because both actors were trying to prove something. They were trying to, and when I first met Brad, I actually didn't even want to meet him, to be honest, when he was suggested for this part, because I mean, it wasn't that he was suggested, it was that he had been tracking this script and he wanted to play it. And I said, this is crazy. He doesn't do this kind of stuff, because the character is this terrible, manic, depressive, fast-talking, frenzied, flappable, he's just everywhere, and he's just like this explosion. And you've never seen Brad do that. He's laconic, he's quiet, he's very pretty. And he came in and he really impressed me with his sort of earnestness and his enthusiasm to try something. And I'm a real sucker for that. Anybody who's enthusiastic about something, anybody who's trying to do something that nobody has allowed them to do before, I fall victim to this.
Brad's character is the son of this scientist, and who's played by Christopher Plummer, who's perfect, by the way, for that type of role. But he also meets this psychiatrist played by Madeleine Stowe. Oh, by the way, thanks for bringing her back to the screen. I can't see enough of her.
She's as good as they get out there. I think she's just a phenomenal actress.
So here we have, Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis are incarcerated. Willis, in order to do what he's got to do, has got to somehow get out.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't want to tell people too much.
No, that's the problem is when you actually start describing the story, it seems to make sense, but it's not as simple as that, because the film is very much about this uncertainty, this ambiguity, ambivalence about what is real and what isn't real. Right. Is this actually happening? Is this in his head? Does this future exist or not?
And there's also the connecting element of the opening sequence in the movie is this weird, wonderful. Is it a flashback, a flash forward of an incident that takes place at an airport, and that's the connecting element throughout the entire film, and you're always left wondering what that's all about. And actually, when we get off the air, I want to ask you of something that has to do with that. But yeah, it's just you never know what's happening. I mean, the film is told from the point of view of a delusional schizophrenic maniac, so it's really difficult to find out whether or not any of this is true.
But it's kind of like, you know, the whole thing is like a big jigsaw puzzle, and we present the pieces bit by bit in an order that may not make sense at the time, and it requires a real involvement of the audience. They've got to pay attention. One of the things we keep trying to tell people is to make sure you've got a strong bladder or you've gone to the toilet before you see this film, because if you're in it, you can't get up and go out because you're going to miss some important details. You've really got to work on this thing, but in a sense, they've got to trust us, because eventually all those pieces start falling into place, and then, well, it's kind of too late once they start falling in, because there's an incredible, I think, like locomotive feeling towards the end as you're rushing towards the edge, and it's terrifying.
Terry Gilliam, you have a vision. You have a way of presenting on the screen the future. It's expansive, it's exciting. At times it's depressing. At other times it's horrific. At other times it's funny. Where does this come from?
Mixed up chemicals. I don't know. It's genetic mutation. I don't know. These are the things. I've never tried to explain it. I've never tried to analyze the way my mind works or why it works as it does. I've never gone to a psychiatrist. I get paid too much not to. It's the way I see the world, I suppose. I mean, I find the world a very strange place, a confusing place, a wonderful place. It makes me laugh. It terrifies me. In a sense, that's what you see up on the film is how I go through life.
For those who don't know, everybody should know by now, you first were able to see this man's vision if you watch the old Monty Python series, which still pops up occasionally.
When we were doing this film, apparently it was on almost every day on Comedy Central, and I was in Philly.
I watch it all the time.
I was never recognized so often as I was when we were making this film, because I don't expect to be recognized, and there we were.
It's amazing how those things still hold up. The shows still hold up. They make me laugh. I know I'm one of those geeks that know every line of dialogue, all of the bits and everything, and I still watch them and they're still effective. But I remember the first time that I really saw your vision was Jabberwocky, which I still think is a terrific film.
Right.
And it's distinctively. I expected a Monty Python film when I went to that.
Well, that's what they sold it as.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. and I mean, even with the ad campaign looked like Grail, you know.
Exactly,
and so I went to see it, and I was just blown away by how different it was than a Python film. But I got to say, Brazil. Everyone says that the film of the '80s. Everybody's, they took all these votes and everything, and the best film of the '80s was voted as Raging Bull. But I think Brazil is hands down the best film of the '80s.
Thank you.
I mean, regardless of you had to tailor the ending, but that's.
You know what was fun about it? Jonathan Pryce was here a couple of weeks ago talking about Carrington, and we talked a little bit about Brazil and how much it meant in his career.
I mean, Brazil, Jonathan still walks down, and he was at Cannes this year with Carrington, and all they did was talk about Brazil. And he loved it. I mean, because the film, for him, he was kind of lost in all of the hoopla about the thing, and I remember at the time, especially in England, the reviews, all they did was talk about the look of the film, or the ideas of the film. They never mentioned Jonathan, and yet he's the core of the film. He holds it together. And it's extraordinary. I think, actually, Carrington is the best thing he's done since Brazil, to be honest.
Well put, well put.
I agree.
We got to take a quick break. Terry Gilliam is here. We're talking about 12 Monkeys. Oh, are you in for a ride on this one? We'll be right back. I hope you are somewhat intrigued after hearing Nick and Roy talk to Terry Gilliam about his new film, 12 Monkeys. It is an experience in the theater. It's something that will excite you and entertain you. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you think. It will also, I would imagine, make you want to immediately go out, and I hope they put the soundtrack on CD, because I don't know anything about the individual who did the music, and yet it is an integral part of this movie, Terry.
Right at the opening, during the credits, as soon as the score kicks in, I said, well, we're in for something different here. You can just tell by the music.
There's two things here. There's the composer who did most of the score is a guy named Paul Buckmaster, who's never done a big movie in his life before, but a friend of mine, Ray Cooper, who is the percussionist with Elton John and Eric Clapton, who's always worked on the music of all my movies, said, Paul is a genius. He's just never had a chance. What Paul has done, though, is given us the arrangements for You're So Vain, Harry Nilsson's Without You, all the Elton John songs. He's a guy who's been one of the kings of the pop world in the background doing all those amazing arrangements. And so I thought, since we've taken chances with Bruce and Brad, let's take a chance with Paul. And we brought him in, and it's a wonderful score. But the one thing that he didn't actually write, but he did arrange, was the 12 Monkeys theme, which is a tune by Astor Piazzolla, a man who I knew nothing about before I started working on this film. And it was only because when I was talking with Ray about the music on the film, he said, Argentinian tangos might be right for this film. And this is, oh, really? Okay. And so I ran down to the record store, and he said, look for Gardel. And I looked for Gardel. I couldn't find anything. And there was this other stuff called by Piazzolla, nice name. So I grabbed a lot of tango music, brought it back. And it's just, Piazzolla was, he died actually, I think a few years ago. But he reinvented the tango, and he played this thing called the bandoneon, which is a kind of accordion. And the music is so haunting and magical. And I wanted to use it in the film. I didn't know how, and it sort of stuck with me all through the making of the film. And even at the end, we were trying to talk about music. And I said, we got to use this somewhere. And I put it here in the film, I put it there, and it never worked. And then one day I said to Paul, it's the 12 Monkeys theme. It kind of typifies the wildness and the beauty and the manicness and the danger and the funniness of the whole thing, and which, in a sense, was sort of Brad's, the vibes that Brad gave off. And so we stuck it on, and what I'm so pleased is everybody talks about it.
Oh, so it works.
Yeah,
definitely. What did you have to leave out? Unfortunately, today, time constraints, when you come to the commerciality of movies, we have had a 3-hour, a 2-hour, 45-minute film or two this year. Are there things that you wish that you could have included?
Nope. No, I mean, the film is I mean, our first cut was, I think it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
It's always been there. I mean, we've trimmed a lot, but we've not taken anything out. There's nothing there that we shot that should be in there that isn't. This has been an interesting experience because there's been no pressure on me to change it, to alter it. I mean, I had one conversation with the head of the studio after it was all done. He said, it'd be nice if you did this, that. I think it'd help, but if you don't, it's your film. And that's, you don't get that very often. And from the beginning, like the marketing people saw it in London, and they were excited. So we've been to screenings, which we, do, and they fill out the cards, and you go crazy because the system is such a ridiculous system. I mean, why should democracy enter into the world of art and storytelling? You don't sit around voting when a guy gets up and starts doing his act at the Comedy Store. You don't sit there and sort of vote on each word. Should he do this? Should he do that? You let him get on with it. So my attitude, we go to these things, and I rage and scream and shout, but in the end, you kind of learn certain things from it if you're careful, and if you're allowed to learn, if you're not pressured by a lot of neurotic executives, because they always read the information wrong. It's kind of like, when you look at the entrails of a chicken, if you do that for telling the future, you got to be careful how you do that. You got to be calm and relaxed. And we were luckily allowed to be calm and relaxed.
Now, the last studio film that you did, The Fisher King, was the experience different? Was it...
No, that was also a really good one. I think what has happened is post-Brazil, they are very nervous about me because I behaved very badly over that one. I made a lot of noise. I embarrassed people publicly. And now they kind of treat me like, this piece of human gelignite that could explode in their face at any moment, which is very nice. So all I've got to do is go around smiling, keep my voice low, and we have a good time.
It was a long time between films.
Yeah, I was going crazy because I think I was the victim of success, because before, my choices had always been very limited after I did a film, and usually they were all my own projects, and I'd have basically one door I was trying to get open. After Fisher King, a lot of doors started opening, and I got all these projects, and in my greed and my excitement for I want to do everything, basically. I was running in all directions like a chicken with its head chopped off, and they kept not happening, and the years were ticking by. It was 4 years before I got behind the camera again, and I was getting very depressed, and when this thing came along, I basically just jumped because...
The movie's called 12 Monkeys. Terry Gilliam's new film. We'll be right back. Terry Gilliam, what a treat to see you. Unfortunately, it's about lately it's been like every 4 years or so. You don't live in America anymore, do you?
No, I have now lived in London longer than I lived in America.
Really?
I've lived 28 years in England and 27 years.
Wow.
It's home, but... When I was making this film, I was in Philly and Baltimore, and I was away for 7 months. So going back to London is always a surprise when you hear these English-speaking people in my house, claiming to be my children, my wife.
Do the Brits approach film in any way differently from the way we Americans do as far as the commerciality of film, going to the movies?
I don't think so. I mean, the problem with Britain and almost everywhere in the world is the overwhelming power of American films, though. I mean, which is, I think, is a big problem, because it's not that they're good or bad films, is that they're just overwhelming all these individual cultures out there.
They don't make as many movies in Great Britain as they once did.
No, I mean, there's a real money problem there. I mean, the Thatcher years were bad for films because they cut out certain forms of funding and tax relief that used to allow money to come in, because this independent film money is very strange stuff. It's very dodgy. You don't know where it comes from, but it floats offshore and tries to find little ports where it can land. And in England and many other, I mean, the Australian film renaissance some years ago was a result of liberal tax laws. Canada had the same thing, and England had it once, and then they closed all those loopholes, and the money just went away. So it was a very rough time, and I think that's why so many of the British filmmakers have ended up in Hollywood working.
You do theater, or have you done theater?
No,
Do you ever wish to or think about?
It keeps sort of coming up, and I just love movies too much. I think my skills are best suited for films. I keep being offered opera as well, which
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you know what I find amazing about 12 Monkeys? It took you 4 years to get the film going, or to get it up, to make it. But it's really strange that is. I couldn't believe when I saw the film that you didn't write it.
Yeah.
You know, because it suits your sensibilities so well, or you made it suit your sensibilities so well. I mean, there's bits of Brazil in there. I mean, you seem obsessed with chords and tubes and pipes and, and things like that.
It's the workings of things I'm intrigued with, whether they're people's guts or whether it's electrical cords. It's
the messiest vision of the future.
Yeah, well, that's it, because we spend our whole time sort of blinding ourselves to the way things really work.
Yeah.
We're all about surface, and I just love to get under the surface and expose the guts of society.
Every frame of one of your films, there's so much to look at.
Yeah.
There's like in this film you have newspaper headlines plastered all over the wall and posters and things, tubes coming down and chairs levitating. I mean, your eyes are just all over the place.
But Nick brings an interesting point, and that is, a Terry Gilliam film is a film that you will definitely want to see more than once.
Well, I keep trying to get the studio to understand this and say, listen, this is a film you have to see. 12 Monkeys you have to see twice. So why not offer a deal where when you buy your ticket, two tickets for the price of 1.5?
What a great idea.
And then nobody wants to do this. I think it's perfect, because it is a film that you have to watch again and again. I actually make films that will be watchable again and again. I hate the fact that I go into the movies now, the thing for 2 hours, it takes place, I walk out, it's gone. Forgotten, no desire to go back and see it again. I've seen everything there is to see, and I've experienced everything there is to experience. It leaves no residual memories in my head. It doesn't leave sort of shards stuck in your brain that you can't get rid of, that make you think. And what is nice about, 12 Monkeys is that there was a junket in New York, and the journalists saw it, and the next day they were all talking about the fact that they talked for hours afterwards, trying to work it out. And everybody has a slightly different idea of what's going on and isn't, which is great. People say, isn't that awful? Don't you want to, what's the message? I said, it doesn't matter. You can all decide what really happened in that film.
Yeah, I know my decision of it is a little bit different than Roy's. What I think actually went on in the film.
And we won't tell you that for at least 2 months. Anyway, Terry, it's great. Don't make it 4 years between projects.
No, I've got
You're too inventive. You're too imaginative.
I'm going to die soon, too. So I make a couple films before I kick the bucket.
The movie's called 12 Monkeys. It's a Terry Gilliam film. We'll be right back.